Can prophets tell us when the world is actually going to end? And can a prediction make or break our lives? Can it make or break your lives? Have you ever been told something that's going to happen in your future that you're afraid might be true and it changes your trajectory in what you're doing with your life? Is that helpful?
Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
Hello, and welcome to the Angelscapes podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Smith. I'm your guide to bringing instructions for living a soul-filled life. I always change that up every time I say something. So I want you to join me in this episode for a chat on the gifts of prophecy and how they work. Predictions can spur us on and help us make needed changes. So they can be very helpful. But some prophecies can overwhelm us and frighten us to the point of stopping us in our tracks. How can we work with some of the dire prophecies about the things we are living through right now? It's good questions. I want to talk in this episode about intuitive hits, premonitions, and prophecies. So let's go back a little bit in history and talk about what we've learned about prophecy just from the old days and what we're hearing about prophecy now. I recently listened to a YouTube video claiming to be from Edgar Cayce, a prophecy or prediction from Edgar Cayce about the current political state of America, including the current president. As I listened to the video, there wasn't much information about the actual prediction, but there's a lot of information about Edgar Cayce and his history, building authenticity for him. And then as it shifted into what the prophecy premonitions for this current time is, there was a big build about how this was a wonderful time, magnificent time, and there was a tremendous perspective towards some of the positive aspects that this creator had about what's happening in the government today. And there was a definite point of view to it, and it was a call to appreciate what was happening. So that really wasn't a prophecy, it was an opinion. And we need to kind of discern some of that. Is this a word of God? Is this a premonition from the one mind of how things are going? Or is this something that's subtly trying to influence us and hiding behind the premise of prophecy? Now, prophecies have come throughout all ages and times. We want to go back to Noah's Ark. You want to go back to Jonah and the whale, where God came to these men and said, I have a message for my people who I love dearly, but they're really screwing up. So I want you to deliver this message so maybe they'll straighten up and live better lives more in the laws and the quality that I want my people to live in. And as we know, well, maybe you don't know the story of Jonah, he said, oh no, I'm not going to go and tell those people. They're going to beat me up. They're going to treat me bad. And they might even kill me. So I'm not going to do it. And Jonah ran away. He took a boat to another land, the other side of the world. And the boat had terrible weather. The boat went back and forth, and the storm would not stop. And the sailors, because they were superstitious, decided that Jonah was the bad luck on the boat. And if they were to throw Jonah overboard, the storm would stop and everything would be fine. You get where people were, their mindsets were back then. So they threw Jonah overboard and expected him to drown. But a whale came swallowed him up, and he lived inside that whale. I don't know how long, a few days, a few weeks, until the whale finally spit him out to some shore somewhere, and he was bedraggled. Oh my God, I can't imagine how he smelled. And he found his way back. What happened to Jonah while he was inside of the whale, he had a change of mind, a change of heart, that he would in fact deliver God's message to these people, and so that they could change. If they didn't change, there was a threat. They would be destroyed. Kind of a theme for the Old Testament. And so Jonah found his way to those people and gave them God's message. Now, I could crack a joke now and say they believed Jonah because he smelled so bad, and because, can you just say what you're going to say and we'll do whatever you want to say, just go away. But that's not what happened. They embraced Jonah as being a prophet from God. They recognized whatever it is that they recognized in him as being something pure and something they wanted to believe in, and they changed their ways. And good things happened because Jonah delivered the message from source, from God. And it's a wonderful story with many, many lessons in it about speaking the truth of God and about bringing the word of God to others. Now, there's another Lot and his prediction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Abraham and Lot were hanging out together in this town called Sodom and Gomorrah. As a matter of fact, a version of Sodom still exists, but Lot was told by God that he was going to smite the city, burn the city up, destroy the city. And Abraham interceded with the Lord and said, what if I find 10 people who are good, just people? Will you save the city? And so there was a deal struck. Yes, if you find 10 people, I will save the city. Well, Lot and his wife were of the people that were good, God-fearing people. And that's all they found was Lot and his family. And so God said, well, gave the message to Lot and his wife and his kids and said, you were not able to find 10 people, so I'm going to smite the city. However, you must leave this village, you must leave this town right now and not look back, and take what you need and hurry up because there's not much time left. So they packed up, they took what they needed, they believed in the word of what God was saying, they believed in what they understood and what they heard. And I don't know how God was communicating with these prophets, with these message deliverers during that time, if they actually heard them as a voice right in front of them, or if they were using their clairvoyant super senses. They never explained that. But anyway, Lot took his family and they traveled away, and God said, do not look back, go to the mountains and escape and be safe, but do not look back or you'll be destroyed. And Lot's wife couldn't help it. She missed her friends. She was sad. She looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. So these are considered old-time prophecies where a messenger was sent with a message to a group of people to make a change. And there was a kind of a predictive element in there where bad things were going to happen if you didn't change your ways. So that's one version of prophecy. Now, there's also, I've been reading on YouTube, listening to many prophetic, Nostradamus, Edgar Casey, and trying to remember the woman who, I wrote her name down here, who's blind. She, I'll come to that name, too many notes, has many prophecies as well. And they're all kind of, some people have taken and made videos about them on YouTube and explained what these prophecies were, what they meant, and how they're applying to times now. Nostradamus prophecies were in quatrains, where there was like a poetry and there was a lot of symbolism. You had to kind of figure out the symbolism and what it meant. And I find that many of Nostradamus's prophecies, where they said, oh, he was right, he said this, but it's after the fact. So the messages in Nostradamus's prophecies are not like the old time messengers where God was very clear on a message, he wanted action to be taken, or there will be a consequence. And Nostradamus is kind of generally saying this is going to happen, and then a few hundred years later after that, this is going to happen, and there's no message of what people needed to do or how they needed to work with God to make a change. There's no intercession there. There's no lesson there. There's only kind of fear, kind of like the Bible's book of Apocalypse, where there's all the seals that are getting broken, all the trumpets that are going to get blasted, and we're all going to be smited and suffer miserably until the end of time. Well, not till the end of time, till the end of the earth, until the end of humanity. And we were all being punished. So I want to point out perspective, the concept of perspective in prophecies. In the Mayan calendar, they had just this incredible calendar that went on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And then when it got to 2012, the calendar ended. And some historians feel that the calendar ended because they just didn't want to figure out where the stars were going to be after 2012, because that was a really big job. And that was done. We're just going to stop in 2012. And then a prophet or a belief, or maybe somebody wrote it in some old script, that the world is going to end in 2012. So many people really thought that the world was going to end in 2012. There's no lesson there. There's no message from a higher power. It's just that it's a fact it's going to end. Now, as when we hit 2012, obviously we're still here. So what was the message? What was the understanding? What was the meaning of saying 2012, the world is going to end? Now we can take it symbolically to say around the change of the century from 1999 to 2000, and then we lived for 12 years, that there were some significant changes that happened within humanity, technology-wise, mindset-wise, theologically. Ideas were being put in front of people that were causing changes that you couldn't go back from. Once, kind of like once you see it, you can't forget it. But once you understand the truth, there's no going back, no making any excuses of, I didn't know that was the truth. I didn't understand that. There's no going back. So the end of that age and that era was over, and humanity was stepping into a new era. Not that humanity was being destroyed, but it was stepping into a new era that felt like change, that felt like death, that felt like, oh my God. So there was that teaching that came out from that time. I'm simplifying things, I know, and there'd be a lot of thoughts and disagreements with what I'm saying, but I'm paraphrasing. So hang with me on this. I do have a point. So in the Native American tribes, there was the woman's hut. I think it was the woman's bleeding hut. And in this time of the month, they met every month during their time. And if you know women, when they live together, their bleeding, their cycles start to sink into each other. So can you imagine all these women just leaving the village and sitting in this tent for a while? And that was supposed to be one of their most powerful magical times. There are also some beliefs that this was they became unacceptable, or they would hurt a man's magic once they're in their bleeding times. So they needed to be separated from the rest of the village until they were clean again. There's all kinds of stories around there. But one of the most powerful stories that I've heard was that these women would gather together in this hut, staying warm and having this fire, and going, and maybe they smoked a little funny stuff, I don't know, but I'm saying that disrespectfully, but there was ritual, and there was prayers with this, and there was cleansing with this, and there was meditation with these times. And many of the women began to have visions every month as they trained themselves and they sat together in this power. They started to record these visions, and some of them were amazing. And I was honored to hear one of the really early visions that happened. I believe it was late 1700s, early 1800s, where the women had seen flying grasshoppers as big as houses. And they saw giant trees with no leaves that had ropes hanging from them. And then they saw fires that never burned out, but they kept things lit. And they were terrifying visions to these women. I think they were also saw automobiles and trucks and all kinds of big machineries, and they were afraid of what that could mean about the future of their village, of humanity. And so they wrote it down and they shared it, and they honored their vision. Well, now as we look back on that vision, which we could call prophecy, we see now helicopters, we see electrical wires, we have light bulbs, we have all the things that they described without knowing what they were exist now, but we didn't die from it. The world didn't come to an end from it. They were seeing something they didn't understand from their perspective. So as I go back to talk to you about Nostradamus and some of the other prophets saying whatever it is that they're saying, I have to question is if some of these prophecies weren't being told from their perspective, from their point of view. And as we come to the place of the time that was predicted these things would happen, what do we know to be true about this time that they didn't know then, at the time that the apocalyptic book was written? I don't know who wrote that book. I should know. I don't know if it was a group of men who wrote it or just one person. I should know that. I don't know that. I thought it was a group of people. What from their lifetimes, from their perspectives, did they see and interpret as this is what is going to happen at this time? I feel that it's very frustrating to read these books or hear these prophecies of deep, deep destruction when here we are living it. And so it brings a lot of fear into our lives. Sometimes this is the end times. And I remember even as a young kid, these jokes, these little comic drawn of some sad looking person holding a sign said, "These are the end days, repent and believe." And I think this is decades of seeing these jokes. And I wonder, are we walking into the end times? And I feel like if we want to allow a message to come through, what if the prophet was here talking to us from source, from God, what would the message be? Would it be to be kinder to each other? Would it be to not focus so much on material things and money and corporate greed or whatever you want to call it? And that if we continue to go on to the process of needing to have as much as you can possibly have so that you're the winner, so that you show that you're successful, maybe we need to redefine the meaning of success and shift to more of a connection. And that if we don't shift to this connection to the earth and nature and source, we will create chaos and death and devastation because we're not living in sync with our environment. We are living against the environment. And we can all talk about global warming, and we can talk about the weather changes, and we can talk about pollution. And all of those could be a message from source, from God, through the ancient prophets to say, okay, guys, you've taken this as far as you can take it before the whole world tips over. It's time to do something about it. And I think there's many of us who can agree with those messages that it is time for us to make significant changes, because how we have been living and how we've been creating food, how we've been creating energy, it's not in sync with the best interest of the planet. But we can still create something different and still have our electricity, still have our light, still have our food, still have our heat, but doing it differently. So this has been something that I've been playing with in my heart of hearts, to know what prophecies do. What is a prophecy? What do I believe? How do I let prophecy influence me and take me to a better place? And that's what I think prophecy is meant to do in the old term sense of prophecy. And now we have premonitions of things that could happen. And I wonder, would I call a premonition a prophecy? And I'm thinking maybe not, because what I'm looking for in a prophecy is a teaching, is a message, is a different choice that needs to be made besides the one we have. A premonition may say, here's something that could very possibly happen. And sometimes premonitions will come in with no message, with no accounting to what the higher source in the one mind would have to say about it. So your premonitions are not solid. Well, prophecies aren't solid. Everything can change. Once something is observed and has been thought about, it can be changed, and it probably will change. Once Jonah delivered his message to the village, and the villagers had a change of heart and they started living according to God's laws, God didn't have to destroy them. There was no death and dismemberment that was threatened, that was gone because of the change that this village did. Now, I want to talk about some of the modern day prophecies that I've heard on YouTube, because that seems to be where I get all my big information, and that where it's just a plethora of all kinds of information about all things. So you can get some really good prophetic information on YouTube. Probably not so much on Facebook because it's distorted a little bit or chopped up. In any event, I was listening to a lot of astrological predictions from all over the world. The ones that I could understand their language, because I speak English, talked about what was going to happen to America with this new president, Trump, who is a very unusual president. He is doing things that nobody has ever seen a president do before, and some of it is very disconcerting to a lot of people, and it doesn't hold the ideals. He does not, his administration doesn't hold the ideals that we as Americans, majority of us, hold to be true. He's challenging every single philosophy, theological standing that our country has held. Even if we held it through hypocrisy, he's challenging all of it, in my opinion. Again, I'm talking opinion here, not prophecy. And so the energy change was observed from the planets. It was observed from the relationships to different nodes and different this and that. And I don't mean to say it disrespectfully, but there has been many prophecies or predictions, or I think predictions, because they're not premonitions, they're predictions by reading the planets and where they are in the Ethereum and where they are in the houses. And I'm not an astrologer, but it comes up with amazing information. In any event, it talked about a very chaotic time at this time all over the world, and with a focus on this country and this administration being the crux of some of that chaos. And the predictions, the prophecies that came through were his death has been predicted, I don't know how many times and how many different dates. It was never going to make it through the election because he'd have a heart attack and die, or he wasn't going to make it through his inauguration. He would die before the inauguration. He wasn't going to make it till this time. And now I think the latest one, he's not going to make it in August. He's failing. And we can all see what's happening, but the predictions and premonitions are not in sync with the energy of what's going on. So there's a lot of interpretation happening. So if you look at something that has a lot of interpretation, a lot of premonition work, sometimes we can't nail it. We can't decide exactly what's going to happen. But the thing of it is, we're in a fast changing time. So when we hear lots of different prophecies, predictions, and some people's premonitions, I feel they can have a grain of truth, and they can have some teaching, and they can take us to a thoughtful place. And sometimes they just scare us and they give us nothing. And I think those are the ones that we need to look at, and put it aside until we get more information. I'm a psychic, and I'm a medium, and I'm a strong proponent in the gifts of prophecy. I've seen many amazing things happen as Spirit has spoken to me or through me, from other mediums, or through me as I talk to my clients, where some beautiful information came out that helped empower my clients to move forward in a different direction. So in those cases, we have message from Spirit that has direction, that has love, that has concern, and is inspiring somebody to move forward, as opposed to scaring the heck out of us. I feel at this point, since we have so many prophecies from the apocalyptic book to all the way to all the different Nostradamus and Edgar Casey, they were speaking from a certain space and time that held that information in that space and time. And this is a different space and time. So we can take the words of Edgar Casey, we can apply them, we can learn from them, but then we have to create our own. We have to make our own path. We have to make our own understanding through connecting to source, connecting to God, connecting to whatever our soul or whatever we connect to for the higher power, for the highest and the best, to say, what does this message mean for me in my life now? What is the best action that I'm being called to take at this time? And move forward from there. The best prophecy is the one that delivers the message of you can change, or you can think about this differently, or this isn't working, this behavior, throwing plastics into the ocean isn't working. Here's all the scientific proof that we have, but it's going to, but if it continues to go like this, here's what's going to happen. There are scientific prophecies that have facts behind them. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, about my intuition. I get a lot of hits. A friend of mine said I was a seer. I could see things that were going to happen. I'm not so bad. Sometimes I see different weather shifts or different geological shifts. I struggle with time frames. So when I'm working with Spirit and getting premonitions, I don't necessarily talk about them a lot. I continue to work with them. I work with my premonitions with the power of three. It needs to show up 3 different times in 3 different ways, and it needs to have information with it for me to follow it through, and or to give it weight or to put energy into it. But if I do have a message from Spirit, I do try to work with it. I'm working with some messages that are years old. I'm still working with them, and I don't share them, but I want to share one with you right now, where about 5 years ago, maybe 4.5 years ago, I'd say 5, I was in a spiritualist camp up in Maine, and I was teaching that week. It's for a whole week, and then I was giving messages, and a group of us sat in what's called a cabinet, which is a small space with a curtain, and it's sitting in black. You're sitting in darkness except for a red light, and this this cabinet helps you to shut out sound and noise and put you in a space of quiet where you can go in and connect with Spirit, go into a trance like state. And what we were doing is transfiguration with the faces. So the red light would face the medium, and as they went into a deep trance, a face would appear over the medium's face that was not the medium's face. And it was phenomenal to watch. And we took turns, the 3 of us took turns. We did it for 3 or 4 nights in a row. And I found out that I could take pictures of this in the red light of these faces as they changed. And once they changed, I was able to hit my sketchbook and draw those faces, and I laid them all out. And people were coming in from different seances and saying, I know that person. And the other person would take another drawing, say, I know this person, and they would tell me who those people were. It was just a miracle. It was amazing phenomena to be part of. But one of the things that happened while I was sitting in my trance, while the transfiguration was going on, is I was taken to this far, far, far away place. I didn't imagine it. I didn't try to go there. I just was there. And it was a huge, huge, monstrous, for lack of a better thing, a thing that we're moving through space and time. And that this thing was moving comparatively slowly compared to how fast other things can move through space. I'm not going to give it a name. And I felt a artificial intelligence within it. I felt that there was some thought process going within this huge projectile, let's call it that. And I was there enough to ask questions like, who are you? What is this? Is this coming to Earth? Because it was not in our solar system. I was aware of that. And I intuitively heard, not yet, not for a while, about 5 years, you'll see it. And I thought, this is really fascinating. And I tried to get, why is this vessel coming? What is the purpose? And I really didn't get much more beyond that. My imagination went wild, but that was my imagination, so I set that aside. And just this past couple of weeks, there is a huge projectile that just entered our solar system. And some scientists are observing it, and it doesn't have the natural aspects of a comet. It looks different. It doesn't have the tail. It doesn't have the certain aura around it that comets have. It's just very different. Has a different setup. It has a different kind of arc to it that they don't recognize how this arc would have been made. And so a couple of scientists from even from this country, I think one was Harvard or MIT, I need to write better notes, had said, we need to consider that this is not a comet, that it's something else. And I found that totally fascinating because it was right in line with what I saw in the trance. Now, I shared this with a couple different people, and they said, well, isn't that interesting? We had no way of proving, no way of knowing. And I'm not real big on announcing things that would just either make me look bad or scare people or cause a problem. I am willing, though, and I'm really curious to take in information from a higher source without putting myself under the lamplight of, you got to prove it, Nancy, to curiosity. What am I learning from this? What do I know to be true about this? What is my experience about this? So, and this was, again, part of the power of three. I saw it once, and now I have some information about something that matches that. And now I need to continue to work with spirit and my intuition, and my premonition, my ability to see, feel, and understand information from spirit to see what is the next message from this. What is the next piece with this? Do you follow how I'm doing this? I feel like Nostradamus, when he wrote all of these quatrains, and he seemed to hide a lot of it in symbology and poetry and whatever, so it made it difficult to understand that. I feel like he did that on purpose. I'm not sure why, but I also feel that he had spent a lot of time viewing, meditating, seeing, and just communing with the one mind that saw what was going to unfold over the next few hundred years. I think that's amazing. Time, when you're working with the metaphysical, is not a straight line. Time is a more of spiral, cyclical, where it can fold in on itself sometimes. So we may see the past, but it could be we're seeing our future. It's all really quite amazing. We don't really understand how time works, is what I'm trying to say. But built as human beings, it's better to understand it as time being a straight line. That was then, this is the present moment, and that's where it's going to be. So having said that, using prophecies or understanding prophecies, I feel, need to be part of the stream of consciousness that is source, that is God, so that we can understand what the messages are that are coming through. What's the guidance? What's the direction? So let's unpack this a tiny bit more. Prophecy is simply receiving intuitive information about something that is not yet known, something that may unfold in the future, or that's hidden in plain sight right now. So having a premonition or having something that feels like I'm seeing the future, it takes time to observe what you're feeling, of what you're getting. If you hear a prophecy that somebody else is saying, and we got to believe them, we got to act on it, I want you to pause, take a minute, and ask your own inner guidance system, your own soul. If I hear this, and if it's true, my angels, my God, what action needs to be taken. Sometimes we can divert what the energy flow is by changing our own energy flow. If you know what I mean, we change our attitude, we change our thoughts about something, we change our behavior, and we can totally divert the projection of what could possibly happen. So anytime I give a reading or tell something to somebody that's intuitive or a premonition, they have the opportunity to change the ending. So we have a tremendous amount of power within ourselves. So when we hear a prophecy that really gets to you, what is your role in that it gets to you? What's the message? What's the action to be taken? Now, if we all have a prophecy, we're all agreeing with a certain prophecy. Let's say we all agreed that the Mayan calendar was right and we're all going to die in 2012, then we have a collective mindset that is all agreeing that we're going to end in 2012. And then we have a Jim Jones thing on our hands where everyone's agreeing to be self-destructive or agreeing to create that kind of an end. You see what I'm saying? We're creating our own reality in some respects. I mean, sometimes it just, stuff happens and I didn't see that coming or I didn't create that. But if we look at our relationship to the energetics of what's happening, we can see the different choices we can make. Like, for instance, if we're paying attention to the energy zigging and zagging and something's coming right at us, we can duck. And that's our relationship to the energy. I'm going to duck, that kind of thing. So that's what I view prophecies as being. If we want something to end, for instance, we're really uncomfortable with what's happening. I'm not making any predictions about this, by the way. What's happening with this new president and with the new administration and with all of the choices that they're making, and it's going against what we always thought, or you always thought to be true about the American government and the ideal of the American government. And somebody predicts, oh, he's going to die. And that prediction is coming from a wish. That prediction is coming from, I see this trajectory happening and I don't like it, so I'm going to predict that it's going to end. And that's in alignment with your imagination. That's in alignment with your fear. That's in alignment with your big emotions. It's not in alignment with the higher power. Source. Source isn't making the administration. Source is not creating Trump's mind. Source is viewing the energy of humanity as it moves forward. So if we move into source and we see it from a soul's point of view, what are you going to see? You're going to see and view and perceive based on your world, your understanding of life, where you are right now in your life and your wisdom. And that's what you're going to perceive, and that's the information you're going to get. Here's what I need to do to change the trajectory of what's going on. Here's my piece of the puzzle. Here's where I'm going to step into it. And it would be totally different than somebody else's piece of the puzzle and where they're going to step into it. So we have a lot of people now individually deciding that we don't want to go take this course of action. We don't want to agree with this course of action. So we're going to take a different or opposite, equally opposite direction, equal energy forces, and so that this one trajectory doesn't fulfill itself. I hope that I'm making sense with the power that prophecy gives us. Is the power to think ahead, think theologically, think metaphysically, and create from another place. When we hear a prophecy and we jump in and we're afraid and we're gonna defend that prophecy to the end, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling belief. We don't have to do that. We are given in this time. Yes, I found her name. There are stories of the blind prophet of Bulgaria, Baba Vanga, who foretold specific events, some accurate and some are unverified. When we look at a prophet, we want to look at their accuracy, but we also want to look at what they missed and what they were trying to perceive. I'm not saying they were wrong and they weren't connected with that higher source and seeing something, but the way that they brought it out and explained it maybe wasn't in a way that we could understand it. Sometimes we need to dig a little bit more. And I'm not making prophets wrong. I'm putting us in the driver's seat. I'm putting us in the seat of choice. I'm putting us in the seat of the co-creating with source to say, do we want to create this or do we want to create something else? So I'm trying to, in this episode, just talk about empowering yourself with prophecy and premonitions and intuition and wisdom, that you're not trying to figure it out by yourself. You're in relationship to a higher power, to your soul, to God, to the angels, whatever you see as a higher power. Now, if you don't believe in a higher power and you're just going to kind of work your own deal in your own time through your own perspective, that's fine. But I bet you're not believing in all those prophecies either that are on YouTube or out in books and out all over the place. So maybe, but if you're aware of what you're agreeing, whether you believe in God or not, just be aware of what your mindset and your belief systems are agreeing with, because you're adding to that pot of reality. You're adding to that pot of creation. And what do you want to create? What pot do you want to fill your thoughts and your energies and your love in, or your fear? And fear, love is the opposite of fear. So if we're in fear, can we shift to love and create something a little bit different? Prophecy isn't always about prediction. Sometimes it's about a pattern. And sometimes it's a mirror of what we need to face now before we create a future we don't want to live in. Right? Doesn't that make sense? So when an ancient prophet says the world will end, it might mean the end of a way of living, because we can't live that kind of life anymore. Or it may be that we've evolved a little bit further, and it could mean the collapse of an empire. Are we looking at the collapse of American democracy, the kind of a federalist thing, and something else is going to rise from it? For instance, are we viewing a spiritual reckoning? Like, okay, we've been going along and there's a little bit of hypocrisy and there's a little bit of blind faith that other people are taking advantage of. And maybe we need to reckon that. Spiritual reckoning, meaning what is happening to our spirit as we have these beliefs, as we have this behavior. And maybe the prophecy means it's time to make a shift in consciousness. So this is where I will take that concept. The world is coming to an end. Yeah, I get it. The world is coming to an end. And isn't it going to be a glorious beginning if we work at it, if we decide what our ideals were, if we decide what is the best way to live in the natural laws that guide us, that were created by a higher source, not by man's mind. All we have to do is just observe nature, and we'll kind of observe what source wants for us. Here's where your power comes in. You are not bound to the vision of a prophet. You're not stuck in a script. You are co-creating your life with every decision that you make. So what are you creating when you decide, if you decide you're on a diet, you want to lose weight, and you decide, it doesn't matter today, I'll have those cookies, or I'm going to have that extra helping of pasta. So in your trajectory is, I'm going to lose weight, but your actions are saying, maybe we won't lose so much weight this week, kind of thing. So what you're saying and wishing for and what you're doing, they need a reckoning. They need a coming together. And sometimes prophecies can show us where that reckoning needs to take place. Even if a prophecy is accurate, how you meet it and how you shape it is up to you. There was a prophecy of a certain volcano erupting. Okay, that volcano erupted. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to work with the fallout of this volcano erupting? Are you going to get out of the way? Are you going to be aware of how it's affecting the flora and the fauna? Are you going to pay attention to how it's affecting the environment and maybe make a shift and a change to help other people? Maybe somebody lost their farm. I had a vision one time, And I don't necessarily think my visions are prophetic as much as I'm having a premonition of what's happening. And I took a week off and I wanted to just do watercolors. And I started to do this beautiful mountain. And then the mountain kind of turned ugly. And then all the colors came out, this kind of gray green thing. And then all of a sudden the top of the mountain was red, and all of a sudden it was erupting. And it wasn't going well at all, and how I imagined this beautiful landscape scenery. And then I got really beside myself. I was upset. I was just cranky. This isn't right. The energy is bigger than I can handle. That's what I came. There's something happening as I paint, and the energy is bigger than I can mold. And I went to bed very upset that I had just wasted a week of painting and I wasn't coming up with anything. I painted a figure in the foreground, and it wasn't like I didn't recognize who this figure, or there was not this meaning. There was this upsetness with this figure that I was painting. So I went to bed very discouraged and woke up early, still discouraged. And then I kind of was scrolling through the news. This was a few years ago. I'm scrolling through the news, and while there was a huge volcano eruption in Hawaii, bigger than it had been in a while. It's an active volcano. And the lava flow shifted to burn a series of homes. And there was this man who had this home who felt like he was safe as safe could be, and his home was burning up, and he was running and upset, and he was being interviewed, and he looked exactly like the man that I had painted in my watercolor. And I was tapping into something that was just about to happen and then actually happened. And there I saw it in this newsreel of I was just shocked and surprised and dismayed. And I said, I need to learn to trust myself, and I also need to learn to work with my emotions and understand what are my emotions telling me, what's the message that they're giving me, as opposed to thinking they're my emotions and they're driving me crazy. And that was a tremendous experience that I had. I took a picture of it and so sent a couple of friends, and what do you think about this? And they couldn't believe it. So they started to send me more of the newsreels. I think actually a friend of mine saw the figure I painted, and she sent me the reel of the man running around. She goes, isn't this the guy you just painted? And I was like, oh my gosh. So you all have the ability to, even all of you, to perceive something that's in front of you as how the energy is going to unfold for you. We all have that ability on different levels. So I want to just take a little tiny break and tell you, I'm Nancy of Angelscapes. You can find my website at angelscapes.net. If you want readings, if you want mentorship, if you want some training, I'm opening up some training sessions now. I haven't taught in a couple of years, and I'm really getting back into this teaching thing, mediumship as well as the Akashic records. And I tell you what, the Akashic records are a beautiful way to work with premonitions, to work with prophecies. And so if you want to contact me, you could set up a free discovery session. Go to angelscapes.net, book a session, and right at the top is the free discovery session, so you can see where I could fit into your life to help you. So anyway, back to how you can be a powerful prophet yourself in your own life. So you have all this information coming towards you, you have these thoughts, you have these feelings, and you just don't want to listen to any of them. Step back and observe and ask your soul, ask your higher self to guide you, to show you in synchronistic ways or through your studies. I'm going to go research this. Show me some information, or synchronicities, or just things showing up and a usual way, in unusual ways that give you more information about the thing that you're sensing and feeling. Just like 5 years later, I'm hearing about this unusual object that's coming, is now entered into our planetary system, and they don't quite understand it. And I saw it 5 years ago. I think that's amazing. So we all have these pieces in our lives. One way to see prophecy is through your dreams. We have 4 or 5 different types of dreams. We have dreams of just working out the day's yayas In our head, we have dreams that are telling us this isn't right for us, this isn't good for us. We're working out our angst, and we have psychological dreams, working out problems, or just getting the energy out. And then we have dreams that can be prophetic. The prophetic dreams have very specific feelings to them, they're usually calm, they're usually almost systematic. You've got this piece of information, this piece of information, this piece of information, and you're not drawn in emotionally. You just see it. Although sometimes you can be drawn in emotionally, and the emotion is symbolic for something, so you could really work through the symbolism. And those dreams, if you start working your dreams, you'll start to figure out which dreams are psychological dreams, which dreams are yaya dreams, and which dreams are guidance dreams, and which dreams may hold a prophetic vision for you. So I really recommend working with your dreams. That's one way. Dreams bypass logic. They carry symbols from the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. They also, I use the word subconscious as one conscious, the one mind. They carry symbols from the one mind, from source, the creator, and beyond. And they often show potential timelines, not guarantees. And that's important because we live in a multiverse of choices. Prophecies show one possibility. Our choices shape whether that possibility unfolds or shifts. So as in humanity in this year, 2025, we have a lot of choices that humanity has not had ever before. So we can create a whole new paradigm if we decide. We can schism off to this paradigm or that paradigm. It's just amazing what we can do. And if we become a unit, we put our work together as humanity, we can create a whole new world. It could be hell, or it could be heaven. It could be love and compassion, or it could be loss and loneliness. It's up to us. Opposites exist in our world, and there's light, there's dark, there's hate, there's love, there's fear, there's this, and everything's polarized constantly. It's a duality. And how are we going to work with the duality? A lot of times is the question, more than is this prophecy going to come true? How are we going to work with the duality of life and death, for instance? Anyways, our choices shape whether the possibility of that certain prophecy is going to unfold, or we can have a different relationship with it and it will shift. And that's why not all predictions come true. So the reader, the psychic, the prophet, the seer could be spot on with what they're seeing, but the majority of people made a shift in their thought, just like Jonah's village made a shift in their behavior and their thought. Ask yourself, is this message that I'm hearing coming as an invitation? Is it coming to scare me? Is it part of truth? What am I going to do with this energy? Because thoughts are energy. What do I want to choose to do with it? So sit with it and imagine, what would be the best possible outcome? What would I like to see? What do I want? What do I need? Is this message speaking to me, or is this message interrupting me and causing me to go down a rabbit hole of fear? Is it fixed, or is it a call to attention? Is it aligned with your soul, or is it aligned with your conditioning? These are all really important questions to ask. Prophecy isn't reserved for the chosen. Messages can come to you too. You don't have to be Jonah. You don't have to be Abraham. You simply have to be present and willing and curious. Just as I'm curious about some of the things that I've seen. What do they mean? Where are they going to take me? I'm deciding to not decide about them. I want to be curious. I want to be available to that energy. And I also want to make choices that are good for all of us in this energy. I don't want to run around fear with a basket over my head, nor do I want to be naive. I want to be informed, and I want to have choices. I want to create the energy around me that keeps me moving forward, not moving backwards. So the whisper in the middle of the night, the gut feeling you can't explain, the dream that keeps coming back over and over again, work with them, learn to interpret them, learn to ask questions about what does this truly mean. Sit with them, meditate on them, ask for guidance, ask for, can I have the interpretation, please, of what I'm seeing? You don't need to announce what you're perceiving on a mountaintop, because that message may be asking you to listen and observe your own life. Because not all prophecy is about the world ending. Sometimes it's about a new world beginning. And sometimes you're being invited to step onto the path of this new beginning. And that starts inside of you. Prophecy isn't reserved for any special person. We all have it. And maybe you are already experiencing these premonitions and these ideas of what could happen. And so engage in spirit, engage in your own spirit, engage in your own soul, and say, what am I learning here? What am I seeing? What map is this on? Show me, where's north on this one? And you will get the information. You'll get what you need to know. And we're not here to blindly follow somebody else's vision and somebody else's fear. You are here to listen, interpret, and choose. Take the messages and decide what to do with it. To align with your soul is the most important place to go when you're trying to figure out a message. Shape your life from that connection with your soul, because prophecy may offer insight, but you hold the pen. The future isn't fixed. You are the co-creator, and the next chapter is still being written by you. So I want to invite you to consider these things and to consider your place in this universe, in this humanity, and where you have your highest vision and where your soul and you want to go. So for now, I give you peace, I give you blessings, I give you courage to walk in your own truth, to be curious about all of this metaphysical stuff and what's going on, and to build your soul power so that you can really invest in this life and create the best possible outcome. So for now, that's it. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.